Makes me very happy to announce that today the fine folks over at IK Multimedia have just announced the release of their new Tonex One pedal, and what an exciting release it is. For anybody who is already in the Tonex ecosystem, or for anyone looking to get into the Tonex ecosystem, this is a real game changer, and I don't use that term lightly. What exactly is it? Well, basically it's a miniaturized Tonex pedal. Obviously not with all the full features of Tonex pedal, but it is capable of playing all the same incredible tone models and tone model presets that we can on Tonex pedal. So today I'm going to take you through what this is capable of, what it's all about, and I'm also going to go pretty in depth today into how we can utilize it, how we can make the appropriate settings on it, just so that you're well informed about exactly what it is. And I have a feeling you're going to be quite impressed with it. So without further ado, let's dive right in and take a look at what Tonex One is capable of, how it sounds, and everything that we can do with it. So we know that when we purchase Tonex One, we get the actual pedal, which basically fits in the palm of our hand. Really incredible. It's not going to take up much real estate on our pedal board. But what do we get that's included with Tonex One? Well, when we purchase Tonex One, it's also going to include the Tonex SE software, which is going to have 200 premium tone models, plus the user models, which are available on ToneNet, which at present writing is over 25,000. So we will not get Tonex Max, but we will get Tonex SE. The beautiful part about this is we can load up third-party captures such as the ones found at my website, and I will have a link below to that if you're so inclined and you want to go peruse what I have there. I have a lot available, and I think they're all really great sounding depending on what you're looking for. I've got all the bases covered for that. Tonex One is also going to come preloaded with 20 tone models, with some of those coming from Tonex Max. So now we're going to head over to Tonex One pedal itself. I'm going to show you the interface and all of the things that we can do with the actual hardware. And then we'll take a look into the Librarian function also. So here we are over on the Tonex One pedal. I'm going to try to keep this as straight on screen as I can get. So basically the hardware interface looks like this. We have an input here where you can see my guitar is plugged into, and we also have our output here. We have a foot switch, which is going to be kind of a dual function foot switch. We'll talk about the different modes that this is capable of. We have an Alt button here that you can see when I press that, it's going to put Tonex One into a different mode. And we have a large encoder, which is either going to control our volume or our gain. Now up here, we have 3 rotating encoders that are going to be labeled bass, mid, treble with secondary functions of gate, compressor, and reverb. And we're going to talk about everything this can do. As you can see right now, I have this hooked into my computer via the USB-C connector down here. And believe it or not, that is also going to be able to power the pedal. So I don't at present have this powered by a power adapter, but rather just from being plugged into my computer. But there is on the top here, not that you can see it on camera, a power adapter input as well so that we can power it in various ways. It does not include the power adapter though. So let's dive in and see exactly what we can do. Let's start at the top. So I have my guitar on the input. I have an output coming out going into my audio interface. As I mentioned, I'm hooked into the computer so I can access Librarian, which we'll show in a few moments. And I'm also getting power from my computer. So basically up here, we have our bass, middle, and treble controls. That's pretty self-explanatory, just like on Tonex software where we can control the bass, the middle, and the treble. We can do that right from Tonex One. Now, obviously, this is not going to be like Tonex pedal where we can dive into those deeper functions and set things like the frequency and maybe the Q of the mid-range parametric EQ. We're not going to have, obviously, the same amount of control, but what we can do is we can make those edits in the software before we transfer the preset to the pedal, because we can load either a tone model or a preset up on Tonex One. So if we make all those tweaks inside the software, such as some of the advanced parameters, maybe the parametric EQ, or we've added depth or presence, or we've adjusted our reverb and compression, and we save that as a preset, load that onto Tonex One. Tonex One is still going to recognize those changes. We just simply cannot tweak them all from within the Tonex One hardware. So that is obviously one of the limitations we're going to have, but in such a small footprint, we are obviously going to have a few things that we aren't going to be able to do that we would be able to do in Tonex Software or Tonex Pedal. Now, we have this really cool little Alt button down here, and when I press that, you'll notice that my encoders start to flash. Now, my bass, middle, and treble are no longer bass, middle, and treble. Now we're going to be controlling gate, compression, and reverb. So that's a really nice extra feature that we can have if we do want to make an on-the-fly adjustment right here on Tonex One pedal. Now, if I simply press the Alt button again, you'll notice the encoders stop flashing and we're back to controlling bass, middle, and treble. Now, what about the large encoder? Now that I'm back out of Alt mode, the large encoder is basically going to control the model volume of the tone model that we have selected. Now, there is something we got to be careful of here. The volume knob is going to edit the model volume if the compressor is set to pre. But if we have the compressor set to post, this encoder is then going to set the compressor's makeup gain. And that makes a lot of sense because if we want to control our model volume, if we have the compressor in pre, and I've talked about this in other videos, then the model volume will be after the compression and will not affect it. But if we have the compressor in post, if this was controlling the model volume, all that would be doing is pushing more level into the compressor and adding more compression and not even necessarily raising our level. So if we have our compressor set to post, this is going to control the makeup gain of our compression. When our compressor is set to pre, this will be our model volume. Now, if we press Alt, this is going to control the gain control of our particular tone model. So we do have a lot of tweakability here, some really great functions that we can make some on-the-fly changes if there is some elements to our tone model that we loaded up that we're not happy with. So there is some nice tweakability there, and I think it was well thought out by the folks at IK. Moving on down to our foot switch. Now, this can potentially have two different functions. It's going to be very important to know which mode we're in. We have two different modes on Tonex One. We have dual mode. Now, dual mode is going to allow us to switch between preset A and preset B. So basically here you can see the colors change here over on my encoders when I press. So that's telling me that I'm on one particular preset or tone model. And then when I press, I'm going to switch to another. So we could have maybe a clean tone here and an overdriven tone here, like edge of breakup and high gain, right? So we're going to talk about how we can switch into that mode. Now, there is another mode that we'll talk about shortly, which is Stomp mode, where what we can do is utilize Tonex One, and this could be one of the coolest ways to utilize Tonex One, is we can utilize it as an overdrive pedal or a fuzz pedal or a distortion pedal, load up a model of just an overdrive pedal. And I have some of those available on my site. There are some links below if you want to check those out of some really cool overdrive pedals. But when we're in Stomp mode, this is going to be an on-off switch. So basically, we have an overdrive or distortion pedal tone model loaded on Tonex One. We can just have Tonex One acting as our overdrive pedal and turn it on and off like we would with a normal overdrive pedal. And we'll talk about that when we go into global settings on how we can set that mode. So that is going to be the use of our foot switch on the front. Now let's talk about getting into global setup and all of the settings we can make in there. And these are going to be quite important. The way we enter global setup is by going to our Alt button and holding it for 6 seconds. So I'm going to press this now, and you're going to see some changes happen up here to our encoder lights. They flash, and then we keep holding, and now we have entered into global setup. So each of our little encoders is now going to have its own function here now that we're in global setup. So by rotating the bass control right here, and I'm sorry if my hand's in the way, I'm trying to do this in a way that's going to be easy for you guys to follow. By rotating our bass control counterclockwise, we're going to set the pedal in dual mode. And you'll notice the light is green here. Now, if I rotate this all the way the other way, clockwise, now we're going to be set into Stomp mode. So as I was mentioning, you'll see now that we can do an on-off button push because I'm in Stomp mode. But if I go back into global settings, and I'm just going to hold this again for the 6 seconds, rotate this the other way, you'll notice now, and when I do press this, it takes me out of global settings, which is fine. now we have that dual mode where we can go between different tone models. So again, very cool. Two really great uses and a real good argument for why we might want a couple Tonex Ones on our board. One that can act as an overdrive pedal and one that can act by switching between two tone models. So now that we're back in global settings, that's what the bass encoder does. That's going to switch between dual mode and stomp mode. Now, the next control here, the mid control, again, if we rotate this, you'll see that it goes, when I go clockwise, it goes to red, and when we go counterclockwise, it goes to green. Now, when we are fully counterclockwise, the cabinet is going to be globally active on all of our presets. So if we have tone models that have amp and cab included in them, or an IR, that cab is going to reflect what is in that tone model. Now, when we turn this fully clockwise, this is going to globally bypass the cabinet on all presets. So if we were thinking of using Tonex One into a power amp and a real guitar cabinet where we didn't want the cab that is in the tone model reflected, regardless of how the tone model is set up, we could just come in here globally and turn that cab off for all presets. And then we wouldn't have to worry about a cab accidentally being engaged in a tone model. Tonex One will just ignore that. But we're going to have this set so the cabs are active. Now, the final encoder is going to be one of the most important ones. This is going to be how we set our input trim. So much like on Tonex Pedal, it's very important to set our input trim to the appropriate setting to guarantee that we're getting the tone that we want. And I now have my guitar in hand. You'll see that the light on the encoder actually lights up, and that's telling us how much input we have here. You'll notice as I add a little bit. As I crank it up, it's showing that I'm probably at the point of clipping and not where I want to be. So we're going to have to play around with that to get the appropriate level that we want. But once that's set, we can actually get out of global settings and it's going to retain that setting. And I will have a much more in-depth video on how we can set this in comparison to how we would normally set our Tonex pedal. Now, while we're still here in our global settings, we might wonder what our main knob here does. And when we're in global settings, rotating this is going to set our global output volume. So I'm just going to crank this up to 10 here. You'll notice as I turn it down, it's just my master volume. And again, what you're hearing here, as you'll see when we go over to the Librarian, is some of the tone models from my Tone Kitchen Volume 7 Orange Rock Ultimate Tone Model Collection. And I have a link below to that if you want to check it out more in detail. So I can simply hit my Alt button or press my foot switch, and that is going to have us exit our global settings. Now, we're also going to have another mode here if we want to access our tone models that we have loaded on our pedal. We can have 20 presets or 20 tone models loaded onto Tonex One. So to actually enter browsing mode, we want to press the foot switch and the Alt button at the same time. And you'll notice now that I have a different look to our Tonex One pedal. I have the bass control flashing red and the other two encoders are pink. So when we're in browsing mode, the three micro knobs refer to the three preset slots. So in dual mode, which we are set right now, this is going to control preset A. And as I rotate this, you're going to see that it changes colors. And that's telling me that I'm actually changing to a different preset or tone model. Now, these are going to obviously be loaded up by accessing the Librarian, which we'll look at in just a second. If I want to switch to preset B, I can simply hit my foot switch, and now you'll see that I can do something similar here. And every time this changes colors, I'm accessing another of the tone models. Obviously, we can't see those tone models, but we will have preset those up over in our Librarian. So you can see I can go over here and make those changes. And if I want to switch over now, this is going to be my Stomp mode preset that I would have in here. So very, very cool way of being able to access all of the 20 different presets and tone models that we have stored inside of To Tonex One. And then to exit that mode, I can just simply go back and hit Alt and foot switch together again, and I am back out of that. Now, a couple other features that we have here is if we hold Alt button for 3 seconds instead of 6, we are now in safe mode. You noticed some blinking here, and then it stopped blinking. So in this mode, the pedal is protected from unwanted editing while performing. If we simply hold Alt for 3 seconds again, it's going to disable safe mode. Now back here with guitar in hand, I'm going to show you the final feature that can be very cool and extremely useful. Recently on To Tonex Pedal, we received the ability to have a tuner, and it's no different for To Tonex One. If we take our foot switch, press and hold, you will notice that we go into tuner mode and the Alt button is flashing. You'll notice now that I can tune my guitar utilizing the encoder LEDs at the top. Now, while we're in tuner mode, if we press Alt, this is going to allow us to have tuner either mute or through. So you can see now I'm still tuning, but you can hear my guitar again. But if I press Alt, I now go to the point where the tuner will mute the signal coming out. So we can have best of both worlds here. Press my encoder again. And I am back to my normal mode. Now let's head over and take a look and see how the Librarian is working with To Tonex One. So here I am over in To Tonex Software. It looks really familiar to anybody who is used to utilizing To Tonex. We have our preset browser, our tone model browser. But if we come over to Librarian now and I have my To Tonex One connected up here to my computer, you'll notice up here it says To Tonex One connected. Now, this is also going to display the latest firmware. As of the time I'm making this video, I'm not sure what the release number will be. I am making this in advance of the release. So you'll want to make sure that we pull this down, see what firmware we're on. We can hit the little gear icon here to do a firmware update if needed. You'll see at the present time when I made this video, the firmware is up to date as of right now. We can also export our library, import a library, import the default library. We have a recovery mode, which we don't want to mess around with unless needed, and we have the ability to update our firmware from here. But you'll notice a bit of a different look here now to Librarian when To Tonex One is added on. We have our dual mode up here, and we have our Stomp mode. So while in Librarian, we can actually change what mode To Tonex pedal is on. If I select this, I don't have the pedal on screen anymore, but now my To Tonex pedal is in Stomp mode because I've selected it here. So that's an easy way to do it. But if I select one of these, I've gone back to dual mode where I'm going to switch between the two. And you can see it up on screen when I switch it, they're going to go back and forth. Nothing on the Stomp mode, but on the pedal it is turning on and off. So very, very cool. Now, what we can simply do here is take a look and see what is loaded on our pedal at present, right? So we have our pedal library here, and as we scroll through that, we see that we have the 20 slots, right? I have some that I've loaded on, and some are the ones that came on it. So I've loaded up my JS Orange Rock OD1 in slot 1 and JS Orange Rock Push 1 in slot 2 while putting my JS Scent Clone overdrive pedal capture based off my Warm Centavo in slot 3. So that's what you would be hearing if I went over to that. So what I can do is I can assign any one of these into these slots. So in dual mode, I have preset A and preset B. I could grab any one of these and just drag them to the top. It tells me I want to overwrite that, and sure enough, it overwrote that. And now I have this particular tone model, which came with To Tonex One, that I can switch back and forth. Now, if I want to go back to my library here on my computer, I could simply come back down and drag that one back to the slot that we want. And you'll notice here that A and B are back to how I want them. I can also drag these around like this. I can swap them. That's kind of a cool feature. So you don't have to necessarily overwrite this. So if I went back down here to, let's say, this orange 50 capture that came on To Tonex pedal, and I drag this up to where I have push 1 right now, I can overwrite it. So the original preset's not going to be there anymore, or I can just swap them so that I don't completely get rid of it off of my pedal. As you can see here, I've moved it down right there, and I could also bring that back up and swap it. So very cool feature that's going to allow us to assign things in the way we need to. Now, as I was saying before, I can come over to my pedal, and by pressing Alt and the foot switch at the same time, I can actually go in and select these different tone models on my pedal. And you'll notice, you can't see it on screen right now, but I'm actually switching this with Tonex One pedal by rotating the encoder in the preset browse mode like I was showing you before. So you notice I can go one at a time. So if we've set this up in a way, let's say, where I have loaded up, you know, a clean, maybe a push one next, overdrive one, overdrive two, in a very concise, organized manner, I can now come over within the browsing mode inside of Tonex One, and I can select those, knowing that the first one's going to be clean, next one's going to be push one, but since that's selected in slot 2, it's not going to allow me to do that. OD1, and then I can go through all of these as such too. So basically we can do this from the pedal, but it's going to be much easier to do from the software itself. So I could say, I want to assign, you know, push one here, and I want to assign OD1 here, and I can just swap those so that I'm not overwriting them, or I can overwrite them if I want. So now that I have those two set, you can hear that as I'm messing around with this. Adjust the volumes. And I'm switching by pressing the foot switch on my pedal. And like I said, we can either put a tone model up here without any tweaks made. You know, if we didn't want reverb on or noise gate or compression, we can just grab a tone model without that and drag it up here onto our pedal, or we can take the whole preset with any of the tweaks that we have. So very, very cool functionality. And I think that pretty much covers in depth exactly what Tonex One is capable of and what the new Librarian is capable of. I'm going to have, as I mentioned, very in-depth, shorter videos on very specific functions, comparing Tonex One to Tonex Pedal, setting our input trim properly, and a whole bunch of other features so that you'll have some nice, short, concise videos to reference if you are confused on how to best use your Tonex One pedal. All right, so there you have it. What did you guys think? I hope you are as impressed with this as I am. What an incredible addition to any pedal board. Adding 1, 2, or more of these can open up a lot of wonderful possibilities. So Tonex One will be shipping in May. The product page is up now if you want to go take a look at the IK Multimedia site. I will have an affiliate link below. If you do want to put an order in for one of these, I'd appreciate if you use it. I get a little tiny bit of a kickback from IK Multimedia. I'm also going to have an entire series of videos coming very shortly that are going to be very short, concise, quick tip videos on all the things you can do with this, how to get it set up so that you're using it in a way that's going to work for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm going to leave you with some music on the way out of my Tone Kitchen Volume 7 Orange Rock tone model collection, which were the tones that you were hearing in today's video. I hope you enjoy the music on the way out. The links are below if you want to go and take a look at that particular tone model collection. And if you want to help support my channel, you can grab a copy of it. I hope you enjoy the tones. They'll work great on your new Tonex One when you get it, and they'll also work great in Tonex Software and Tonex Pedal. Thank you guys so much for sharing your time with me. Please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching it. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.